Hi, and welcome to the Millennium Chess YouTube channel. This is a series in which I show you beautiful chess games, which are entertaining and from which you can learn something. Today I will present you a game which was played by the German Grandmaster Vincent Keymer. It was a stunning attacking game. My name is Lara Schulze. I'm a professional chess player from Germany. I'm Women International Master and FIDE Master, and I'm part of the German national team. I've been German champion in classical and rapid chess several times, and I'm also a chess coach. I have the Mephisto Phoenix Chess Computer and a Millennium chessboard with me. We will analyze the game using the chess computer, the Mephisto. The game was played at the Akiba Rubinstein Festival in Poland. Keymer managed to win this tournament in a very impressive way. In this game he had the white pieces against Andrey Volokitin, a grandmaster from the Ukraine. So now I will switch on the computer and use the analyzing mode. So now I can see the evaluation bar next to the small board and the suggestions of the engine, and of course the exact evaluation on the right side. And now I can just move the pieces on the board, and the computer, will analyze it for us. Vincent started with the move c2 to c4, and Volokitin replied with knight to f6. Knight f3, c5 with symmetrical variation, and g3 to bring the bishop to the long diagonal. Black played knight c6, bishop g2, and now Volokitin decided to play immediately in the center with the move d5. Vincent took on d5, knight takes, and knight to c3. Now black has to be careful with his knight on d5, because it's attacked by the knight on c3, but also by the bishop on g2 in an indirect way. But that's why Volokitin played the knight back to c7. Keymer played the very mysterious move a2 to a3, and Volokitin played the move g6 to bring the bishop to g7. And now Keymer played the next a very interesting move. He played h2 to h4. The idea is to play h5 at some point to open the h file and attack. So that's why Volokitin played bishop g4. Now the bishop covers the square on h5, so h5 is not possible now. But now the pawn on b7 is quite weak, because now it's not longer defended by the bishop on c8. And that's why Keymer played the move queen to b3. This is quite risky, because you should not move your queen very early in the opening. The queen is a very strong piece, but it can also be attacked by a lot of pieces, and when you bring your queen out very early, then the queen can be trapped, or your opponent gains a lot of time for his development and can attack your queen very often. So queen b3 is very risky, but of course Keymer knew that queen b3 is possible here and a good move. It was his preparation. He attacked the pawn on b7. But it's also not so clear if he can take it, because sometimes the pawns on b7, b2 are poisoned and you cannot take it with the queen, because, for example, your queen gets trapped when you take there. Volokitin sacrificed the pawn and played bishop g7. Keymer took it. So b7 is a very dangerous place for the queen, but here the queen cannot be trapped immediately. For example, after rook b8, we can also see that now the evaluation bar is better for white, because the knight on c6 was not protected and white can take it. And then white is a piece up. So that's why Volokitin played bishop d7 to protect the knight on c6. Now white has to be very careful, because now rook b8 is a threat. If white plays, for example, a move like h5, then rook b8 is winning for black. The queen has no squares available. That's why Keymer went back to b3, and Volokitin played rook to b8, and the queen went back to d1. So now white made a lot of moves with the queen. Queen b3, queen takes b7, queen back to b3, queen back to d1. So 4 moves with the queen. That's why it's very risky to take a pawn on b7. You have to move your queen a lot, and Volokitin gained a lot of time for his development. But white is a pawn up. And when we ask, the chess computer tells us the position is still equal. So yeah, it was possible to take the pawn on b7, but black has some compensation for it. Volokitin played the move bishop to e6. And now, again, if white plays a move like h5, you can think what you would play here with black. So what was black's idea with the move bishop e6? Now, if we look at the evaluation bar, yeah, it's a lot better for black here. Yes, bishop to b3 traps the queen on d1. It has no squares left. And yeah, but of course Keymer didn't blunder his queen on d1. He played the move queen to a4. Now the queen attacks the knight on c6. Another queen move, I know, so please don't do that at home. It's not good to move the queen so often in the opening. But of course Keymer knew what he was doing. Volokitin played the bishop back to d7 to defend the knight on c6. And now white played d3. Knight to d4 with the discovered attack on the queen on a4. Queen back to d1, bishop c6. And finally, white played the move h5. Black took on f3. Take, 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 take. White is still a pawn up, but it's not so easy, because the pawn on d3 is now an isolated pawn. White has doubled pawns on f3 and f2. And the rook on b8 is very active. It has an open file and attacks the pawn on b2. And the bishop on g7 is also a good piece. So black has enough compensation for the pawn. Short castle. You may wonder why black played this move, short castle, because now the king on g8 is in a quite dangerous place with the open h file. But black has no choice for his king. On e8 it's also not safe. There's the open e file and the check on a4. So the king has to come to g8. And now it's quite good defended by the bishop on g7. This is a very good defender, a very good active piece, but also a very good defender for the king on g8. Now Keymer took on g6 and played the move king f1. This is a funny move, but white does not want to castle short, because then the rook is on f1, and of course the rook is better on h1 on the open file. So white plays king f1, king g2, then the king is on a safe place, and the rook is still on a very good square on h1. Black played the move queen d7, king g2, and rook f to d8. because now black is ready to take on d3. So this is a very interesting position. You can pause the video and think about how to attack the black's king on g8. There's no winning move for white, but yeah, think about how can white attack black's king on g8. There are several ways how white can attack the king on g8 and bring pieces to the king's flank. For example, bishop h6 is a very interesting move. According to the engine, it's one of the best moves. Keymer played another move, which is, yeah, again, kind of funny move. He played the queen to g1. The idea is to bring the queen to h2, and then you can, for example, come to h7 and have some mating threats. Queen h7 is not made in this situation because the king can go to f8 and the bishop on g7. Very important that the queen does not come to h8. So white has to get rid of this bishop on g7 to get the mate on the board. So that's why bishop h6 is still a very good idea for white. Black played the move f5. And now Keymer played bishop to h6. And here it's very difficult to defend this position for black. It is still equal according to the chess computer, but black has to find very accurate moves. The best move in this position is to play bishop to f6. Then, yeah, chess computer says it's 0.00. But of course, it's a very complicated position. For black, it's important to have this bishop on f6. It is a great defender for the king. And for black, it's very important to not allow white to exchange it. But Volokitin made the huge mistake in this position. He took on b2. Now white lost his extra pawn, but can get rid of this great defender on g7. Here you can pause the video again and think about how white can activate the queen in the best way. Queen h2 is a normal move, but then black has time to create some counter threats with queen d4. Now black is threatening kind of mate on f2. And the queen also defends the long diagonal, so there's no mate for white. Keymer played the stunning move queen to c1. So now white has two threats. White is attacking the rook on b2 and has this queen h6 idea. So now black has no time to play, for example, queen d4. Black has to move the rook. Rook to b8, queen to h6, king to f7, queen h7 check, king f6. So now the king is in a very dangerous place on f6 in the middle of the board, but it's not so easy to kill it. Now we can ask the chess computer. So it says it's +3 for white, but it's still very complicated. So Keymer played another check on h4, king to g7, rook a e1. This is a very good move. It's a good advice to bring all the pieces to the attack. Knight to e6. And here Keymer made a small mistake. The best way is to really include all pieces. The knight on c3 is not attacking something at the moment. The best way for white in this position is to give a check on h7, king f6. And then we can include this knight. We can sacrifice this knight with knight to e4. This is a very difficult move and not a very human way to play, but that's the best way for white to attack the king. Black has to take the knight and then white can just take back, and the threat is, to mate the king with e5. For example, black plays a move. Let's play something like rook to b2. Then there's a mate in 3 with e5, king g5, queen to h6 check, king f5, and now there's the mate with g4. Keymer made a small mistake in this position. He played the move queen to c4. It's not the best move. It's a good move. White is still a lot better in this position and has still a dangerous attack. But this way with queen h7 and knight e4 was a bit better. Black played rook to b6 to protect the knight on e6, knight to a4, rook to c6 and knight to b2. Also a very interesting maneuver of Keymer. He had the plan to bring the knight to e5. There's a beautiful square for the knight. It can attack the queen, the rook, the king, the pawn on g6, and there's no pawn which can go to f6 or d6 to kick the knight away. That's why Keymer played knight to b2 to bring the knight to c4 and then to e5. Volokitin played rook to b6, queen back to c1. It looks like a very passive move, but it's not. The queen can go to h6 in one move and give a dangerous check again. So the queen is on a very good place on c1. Rook back to b8, queen to e3. Keymer attacked the knight on e6 again. The knight went back to f8, and now the knight joins the attack via c4 and then e5. King g8, and after queen h6, black resigned. There's no defense against knight e5, covering the f7 square, and then queen h8 mate. So the evaluation bar shows that white is clear winning. That's why Volokitin resigned at this point. So very nice attacking game by Vincent Keymer. The maneuver with queen g1 to come to h2 to use the h-file, then queen back to c1, from c1 to h6, and also the knight maneuver via a4, b2, c4 and then e5. Very nice. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel, then you won't miss any beautiful games, attacking games, interesting endgames and more. See you in the next video.